It's the Awake Space Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. And this week is bumpy. It's bumpy. Last week was bumpy, and it's a bumpy, crunchy, bunky ride. How's that? But I'll help you get through it. To this week, I'm going to help you understand what alignment is. We're going to talk about that at the end of the podcast, and why it doesn't mean what people think it means every single time. We're going to talk about the energy of the week and how to work with the energy instead of resisting against it. And we're also going to talk about why was there so much drama with that Aquarius full moon? Holy cow. Were you the drama? Was I the drama? Who was the drama? Drama llama. Man, when you went into the venting chamber in the awake space, talk about people having stuff come out of the woodwork. Yes, we do have a venting chamber in the awake space Patreon. Because, Wayne, there's something called emotional contagion. Okay. And it's a real scientific thing that our emotions are contagious. And if you notice, some message boards will just be very dramatic. If special interest, you go into Reddit, maybe there's a Reddit board, or you go into the old school forums, and some would just be constant drama, Facebook groups. I created the venting chamber to keep it contained. Okay. I want people to enjoy coming in and not just for the tea or the cheese, right? I want people to come in to have a sanctuary, to have a place to come in and bond and connect with people and build community. We have people at all age groups, whether it's young people just starting out in life, or young mamas, or people who are in the teen years. We have people who are just getting started in life transitions, and we have people who have been at it for a long time. And so we have such a beautiful intergenerational community, very inclusive, right? We put the dog diggity dog in the DEI and in the awake space. I want people to feel free to come in. So that's why we have the venting chamber. Check it maybe once a day to see if people are struggling, like truly struggling, not just frustrated, not just feeling like a klutz, but if people, maybe they're suffering the loss of a loved one, or maybe they're dealing with health crises, or maybe they just need a place to go, and scream into the void. And my God, everybody was dealing with people being shitty. And so I'm going to talk about why and what was up, because as of today, Monday, the 11th, the moon is still full, because the moon is full for 3.5 days. All moon phases last 3.5 days. And so I'm going to talk about that in the next segment, and explain why things were up on deck and why people who have a difficult time managing their consciousness were acting out. And that could have been us, anybody, We all have our moments. We all have our triggers. Going to talk about that. It was wild, I tell you. So there's that. Remember, what's in the headlines is back in the Patreon only, because I can speak more freely and give a lot more details. I've got some juicy bits that will go in this week. That'll go into the Patreon only. It is sponsored by the magazine tier. The magazine is done, edited. I put out the full moon page Saturday night with a book rec for my favorite book about crystals. So when I get people asking me about recommendations, I don't recommend other people's astrology, because I'm teaching the astrology interpretation that I have developed over a lifetime. Okay, so not the technique, because we use traditional techniques, and I'm glad to send people to those resources out there. And I have plenty of information in the Patreon to learn from. But when it comes to interpretation, I teach my work. That is the point of this. But when it comes to other modalities, even though I have a lot of experience in it, I've been working with crystals as long as I've been an astrologer. My very favorite book about that is in that post. You want to see it, you have to go to the Patreon. But anyway, it's going to be a bumpy week. I'm a little worried about tomorrow's commute. That's Tuesday. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next segment. Again, as always, huge thank you to my patrons for sponsoring this podcast. Without you, there is no podcast. Appreciate that. You guys get premium content. You get patron-only podcasts. You get deep dives. You get the magazine. And yes, classes. So Astrology Crew, wait for a message because we're going to meet up this month. And we're going to talk about aspects to the luminaries. Aspects to the luminaries. That's the sun and moon. That'll be super exciting. All right, get your tea. Get your coffee. Get your matcha. Get your water. H2O with electrolytes. We got a lot of energy running right now. You need to keep those channels clear. So make sure you're hydrating. And whether we are folding laundry, going to the gym. I love it when you take me to the gym because then I get my I'm losing weight. Look at all the exercise we've done together. Whether we're taking a walk or we're taking the pups out or we're feeding the cats or we're taking the kids to school. Is it really that time? I can't believe school starts in August. Like when I was a kid, it started in September. So the kids are back to school. So whether we're heading out or we're going to work, I want you guys to keep your hands on 10 and 2. Keep your eyes on the road. Be very aware. And we will get perfect parking together. All right. Let's head on over to the monologue. Oh my, that Aquarius moon was really bringing stuff up for release. And a lot of it had to do with insecurities. A lot of it had to do with old stuff. People having, feeling this sense of self-preservation, not understanding how to fit into groups. There was just a lot up on deck, and you might have found yourself being a little reactive. In fact, there isn't one of us who can hold our consciousness steady 100% of the time. Nobody does. We bounce through the layers of consciousness. And what are those layers again? Well, remember, this is my life's work, okay? We have the instinctual consciousness. That's what some people call the animal nature, right? Our instinctual consciousness that's really, really designed for self-preservation and propagation of the species. That visceral, and it doesn't mean animal is bad. I love animals, but it's where we're very self-defensive, right? That we're less in control in that space. We're much more instinctual, right? We're operating on a knee-jerk reaction. The fight and flight, the amygdala, the lizard brain is control. And then we have our transactional consciousness, which is our social cultural programming. People think transactional is a bad thing, but it's not. Quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, right? You do it all day. And you'll be like, I don't do that, Laurie. I'm not transactional. I'm unconditional. Nope. There isn't a physical relationship on the planet, including between parent and child, that doesn't have some form of transaction. Because if you've ever lost your temper, that was transactional. Okay? I lost my temper because you put Play-Doh in my shag carpet. I never had a shag carpet, but you get what I'm saying, right? I lost my temper because you took Sharpie to the wall. It wasn't unconditional. If it was unconditional, the condition of Sharpie on the wall wouldn't have brought a reaction. It is okay to be conditional. Okay? However, and we do it all day long. Hi, how are you? I'm fine. We're exchanging. We're transactional. Making it like it's a bad thing instead of it just is part of the problem, right? And then we have our transcendent consciousness. And that sounds really elevated, doesn't it? You can still be an asshole in the transcendent consciousness because it doesn't mean enlightened in the nirvana. It doesn't mean that. What it means is you are now deliberate in your choices on how you respond to things. So imagine we're instinctual, right? It's knee-jerk. It's the amygdala running the show, the lizard brain running the show. And then we have our social cultural programming. And think of it, somebody insults you. You're at a wine bar or something. Somebody insults you and you're like, sir, and you toss your wine, right? Not because you're being reactive, but it's socially acceptable to be mad in that space. How many times have you heard people say, you made me angry? You made me angry. It's actually an impossibility. Only you can make you angry. Only you can make you angry. It's your brain. Why would you give somebody else that power? Now, you can get angry because somebody did something, and sometimes it's socially acceptable. Let's think about it. We're driving to work. Somebody cuts you off. Fuck you. Socially acceptable. They almost killed me. I almost had an accident. Of course I can road rage. Or you can say, hey, I didn't get in an accident. Sure, it was almost, but it didn't happen. And now I can just keep driving. That's when you're in transcendence. It's not about being, it's about choosing when you react. And when you can get there, you are in charge of your life. Now, you don't get to stay there all the time. I wish. I get there a lot, but I still have instinctual reactions. I just move them very rapidly when I recognize it. If I'm not in full swing, because you can ramp up and have momentum going, right? And it's a little bit like a snowball rolling downhill. But if you haven't gone all the way and committed all the way to douchebaggery, you could back off and be like, oh, wait, I'm being really reactive. I wonder what's up on deck. Why didn't I feel safe in that moment? And you could say, well, because they were saying these things. Great. But I'm still in charge of my consciousness. Why would I give that person the power to determine my outcomes? Okay. In Western society, especially in the United States, in England, in Europe, we are often very codependent. And there are even psychologists who say codependency isn't bad. And I'm like, what planet do you live on? What planet? Because the opposite of codependency is not rugged independence. It's interdependent. You can be interdependent and understand that it takes more than one pair of hands to get a job done. It takes more than one person to accomplish anything of great means. It takes more than a single person to navigate life. You need community. It takes a village, right? That's interdependence. But when the village is all inferring that other people's happiness is dependent on your actions, that's codependency. You are responsible for your contributions. You are responsible for your actions. You're also responsible for your emotions and your reactions. No one else is responsible for your actions. I mean, well, yeah, for your actions or your reactions. Nobody is making you swear at them. Nobody is making you blow your top. Nobody is making you run away and cry in a corner. No one is. You're choosing that either on a default setting or deliberately. Okay. It's usually on a default setting because it's social. This is where we get in the transactional. It's socially acceptable for someone to come in and say, hey, dinner isn't ready on time. You were just sitting and watching TV. I'm tired of this. And then screw you. And you get in the fight. And it's socially acceptable because you're in your self-defensive mode. It's not social. It's not acceptable. If you're hungry, cook your own damn food. Why are you relying on somebody else? Unless you have an agreement. If they broke the agreement, even then it's not acceptable. It's like, okay, they broke the agreement. I'm angry. What am I going to do about it? You go around hitting people. You're the one who's wrong. Okay. I know there's a whole lot of babies out there that pass as adults who want to blame everybody for their behavior, right? Like, think about it. When a woman is assaulted, they'll say, what was she wearing? I couldn't control myself. What a cop-out. It can devolve to that point. But on the day-to-day, you and me, we can do it too. Oh, that person said this. And that full moon really brought that stuff up. Now, I do teach. When I teach astrology, and I'll be teaching astrology starting at the end of August, okay? Besides in the astrology crew, and astrology crew, you'll get a very special offer, so be ready for that. There is a lot that came up with this full moon, and it's still full right now. It will be full until the 12th morning, okay? Because the moon stays full for 3.5 days. Moon signs change every 2.5 days, okay? But the astronomy of it is the moon phases change every 3.5 days. And so the thing with that is people, in order to be in community, as much as we can't be codependent, we do have to be interdependent. And that is recognizing that there is a room to read, okay? And understanding the rules of community. Every community has their own rules. Every culture has their own rules. Every social group has a dynamic. And when you go against the dynamic, then there tends to be a pushback. There's a really great, and I think I recommended it last week too, but there's a really great book called Who Moved My Cheese? Okay. So a lot of times you come in with enthusiasm. You're so excited to be somewhere and you jump right in without reading the room, checking the temperature, or asking questions, right? And if you butt up against the group, there's usually a pushback of a kind. Now, it can be where there is emotional contagion and you get the dogpiling. And I'm not a fan of dogpiling. Okay. But I am a fan of reinforcing rules that govern the safety of a group. Pardon my 11th house moon. But the safety of the entire group is more important than the desire of an individual. So an individual can want what they want. If it doesn't make the group safe container, their desire does not matter. Okay. And I'm really quick to take care of that stuff. We have very few problems in the awake space. I'm really good at designing communities. And I'm very, very quick to nip things that disturb the peace of the group in the bud. Okay. I'm never willing to take people's money just to have money. I will remove a problem, okay, if it's disturbing people's peace. So that's something to be aware of. And if you're running a group, if you're running an organization, you need to think about that too, because too often being codependent, like, well, I know their backstory. I know they had a hard time. They went through childhood abuse. They went through this. And it's like, yeah, most of us have. Most of us have. It does not mean that we do not care and we do not have empathy. Sure we do. Sure we have empathy. Abso-freaking-lutely we have empathy. But that is an excuse, not a reason to own your behavior. Just like your triggers are yours to manage. I know it's hard. I used to hate hearing that too. Until I realized that if my buttons weren't out to push, they wouldn't be getting pushed. That's why it's no one else's responsibility to govern your reactivity. Doesn't matter what they said, doesn't matter what they did. It's not a John Wayne movie. A man's got to do what a man's got to do. No. Sometimes you don't got to do it. Nor do you need to take responsibility for other people's reactivity. Ever. Not your job. A lot of that is up on deck this week. And when the moon moves into Aries, which is on the 12th morning, it will be conjunct Saturn and Neptune and in opposition to Mars. That's some spicy meatballs. And I think the commute's going to be pretty rough. That's going to happen. It'll be conjunct Saturn and Neptune and opposite Mars right around 5:30 a.m. Pacific. 8:30 a.m. Eastern. It's right in those commuting hours. And so I really want you to be careful. History shows when stuff is up like that there might be traffic disturbances and things like that. Doesn't mean you're going to have an accident. It just means you need to pay more attention. Watch out for people with road rage. People are really super sensitive right now. And most people have not worked on training their Mercury. They haven't trained their minds. They're not mindful. Everybody talks about mindfulness. I don't know. Some of the techniques work, some don't. It's about being in awareness and paying attention. Most people don't. Most people haven't worked on their reactivity. Most people haven't done that. You do because you're listening. Congratulations. And yay. Oh, you still make mistakes? Me too. Because we're human. Everybody gets mad. Everybody has a problem. Everybody is reactive. There isn't a person who isn't. Even Mr. Rogers got angry. Yes, he did. And he would have big feelings. And if you read the book by his wife, he also did pull my finger jokes. And if you know, you know. I was like, oh, Mr. Rogers did pull my finger? To you younger people who haven't experienced a pull my finger joke, that's where you pull an old man's finger and he farts. Everybody farts. Everybody poops, right? Mr. Rogers had that book. He had that episode. Everybody gets scared. Everybody can be reactive. I always say there's no reason to vilify any single zodiac sign. Okay? People be like, oh, Scorpios are hoers and Leos are pick-me's and Cancers are crybabies. And I'm like, do you realize there is a wide spectrum because consciousness expresses in a spectrum and our reactivity expresses in a spectrum. There's lots of different ways to be reactive. Some are the obvious. You poke somebody in the nose because they pissed you off, or you tailgate somebody because they cut you off, or you blame someone when you're upset and you drop a precious vase because you were stressed out because they wouldn't shut up. You drop the vase. It doesn't matter what they were doing. You could be overstimulated. Okay. When you are neurospicy, me too. So don't tell me I'm coming at you because I'm telling you, me too. Very neurospicy. Other people and their noise and their chatter and their laughter or the roar of an engine. I hate certain sounds. Okay. Very audioly sensitive. They're not responsible for my reaction in being overstimulated. You can claim, like those of us who have late diagnoses, we managed up to this point. Now we know why we would be so reactive, or we'd shut down, or we'd need to go hide for a minute. But don't use it as an excuse. Like, everybody needs to be quiet. You can remove yourself. You can go say, hey, I got to go get some quiet. Talk to you later. I'm overstimulated. But you can't make it everybody else's responsibility to accommodate you. The world doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. And there's noise in the world. And I say that as somebody who could hear dog whistles. Thank God I got older. Like, most people's hearing diminishes so they can't hear. I just can't hear dog whistles anymore. That's awesome. It was never anyone else's responsibility to manage my reactions except me. If you give that power away, you're infantilizing yourself. And if you're not a child and you are grown, it's not about masking and forcing yourself to be different than who you are. It is taking responsibility for your consciousness and your own self-care. And the world will not stop for you. It will not. It doesn't stop for you when you're grieving. It doesn't stop for you when you come out of a terrible situation. I remember when I came back to the States with 2 kids, $50, and my head was spinning because I couldn't believe I did it. First of all, I couldn't believe it actually was something that came together very well when it could have gone the other way very quickly. And my head was spinning. I came here to protect myself and my children. And within 3 days, I had people saying, when are you getting a job? And I was like, what? I need therapy. What are you talking about? I have a therapy appointment on Monday. And they'd be like, no. I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'll be okay. You don't have any money. I know, but I have a place to live. I will figure the money out, but I need therapy. Nobody gave it a pass. I'm going to be really mad at those people, but those people were acting in their social conditioning, the transactional relationship. Man, the social programming was, you got to work. Now you're a single mother, and therefore there's something wrong with you. I'm like, but I got us out of a bad situation. Are you kidding? Yeah. The world didn't stop. Oh, man, I wanted it to. I remember another time in life, about 10 years after that, and I had done so much healing. And I had studied with some of the greatest minds in psychology at the time. H. Stephen Glenn, PhD, was world renowned. He was a pioneer in resiliency studies. He was one of the first to measure it and create systems for inoculating children and adults with the very building blocks of resiliency, which is the ability to bounce back after challenging circumstances. It's not about being strong. It's about being able to come back from trauma, coming back from unfortunate circumstances. And I hit a wall. I had healed and healed and healed and healed and healed and healed and healed. And then there was an event that brought something I had never wanted to look at, because it threatened my internal perception of reality so greatly that it made my whole life a lie if I looked at it from how I had believed. And I saw that, and that pain wall was excruciating. I could barely function. And my kids were teenagers. They weren't cooked yet. They were young teenagers. And I found a PhD psychologist. And I had created a healing modality that included these 3 layers of consciousness. So I could notice where I was at in my consciousness. Okay? And I just needed to be monitored. And I told Dr. Silva, not the Dr. Silva method, but Dr. John Silva. He's now passed away. I said, I can heal or I can die. I'm okay either way. I'm done. It hurts. But I have kids and they don't need any more trauma. So I'm willing to give it one last shot. Man, I'm glad I did. I have such a good life. Such a good life. And it didn't take too much long. It took about 5 years of the self-awareness practice that I had created, where I took hypervigilance from complex post-traumatic stress disorder and turned it into hyper-awareness. And it is an integrated mind-body process, right? So, and it took a lot. A lot of people ask me if I'll teach it. I'm like, I don't see it as a panacea. I don't think it's a silver bullet. You have to be really dedicated to your healing process to do it, because it's not a passive activity. It's you being 100% aware every moment of every day, because instead of trying to fight the energy of the trauma, where you're hypervigilant, right? You turn it into hyper-awareness, so you're working with the energy, not against it. You're not resisting. And most people aren't willing to put that much energy into it. They're not. If they are, then great. I'm always willing to give a rec. But if you're only in it halfway, it can bounce you pretty hard. I used to try to do it with clients, and I would notice people who kind of wanted a magic bullet. They may not have admitted it, and I don't mean that in a mean or snarky way. It's just they didn't own their agency. right? And they thought something could fix them. And I would watch their consciousness just bounce. Like it'd go up and then boom, and then up and then boom. I was like, I can't do that to people. You know, I can't take responsibility for somebody else's healing process. It's hard. I'll take responsibility for mine. I can't watch people bounce. It's too hard on me. So I bring that up because when you can do that, and I didn't do it because I'm special. I did it because I'm human. All human beings are capable of this. There isn't a single human being that is able, somebody with the ability to speak the trigger, speak the hypervigilance. If somebody can say, I'm hypervigilant because, then you have the ability to do this. Whether you're willing or not is another story. But you're not destined to be constantly triggered. And the people who say they are, you know, people are like, well, I'll never be able to heal. And that's a falsehood. They've proven neuroplasticity. Go look up Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. Go look up the neuroanatomy of the teenage brain. It's a TEDx talk that she did years ago. It's the best explanation of the brain. And according to neuroscience, brain science, you have 90 seconds between feeling the emotion and washing it through the body. That's how fast it goes. The only reason you stay longer than 90 seconds is because you keep telling yourself the same story. That dirty, rotten so-and-so, that person is so rude and selfish. They wouldn't help me. I don't want to have to put that work in. When people get jealous of your friendships, like you don't listen to me like you listen to them. What? Ever. When you need to make the whole world know about everything. You know, when you're bringing the drama llama. Come on. Stop it. We don't need that much drama in this world. Take control of your consciousness. Because if you're busy blaming everybody else or saying, I'm good, I don't do these things. Everybody does that. Everybody. I had a friend who was a personal trainer for like all the big personal development speakers. And the stories he would tell me about these people who have these very elevated guru positions. And he's like, you know, it just really disenchanted me because they'd come off stage and then they'd be swearing a blue streak. They'd be in relationships that were toxic. They were doing shitty things to people. They were screwing people out of money. He goes, you know, they were great on stage. I was like, I see. I wasn't surprised. It's not about perfection. It's about effectiveness. And that's why I don't put forth and project perfection. It's one of the reasons I swear. You can be spiritual and swear. It's one of the reasons I refuse to project anything other than an integrated personal experience and expression. As integrated as I can be. Some days that's more so than others. I'm hoping to be an example to inspire you to do this for you, regardless of modality employed. And that's why I built the Annie process that we use in the mystery school tier. You know, that's why I teach how to align into your highest, you could say highest, I guess, or your best possible self in any given moment. This week, people are going to be reactive. We've got Mercury stationing, and it will be in direct motion on the 12th. It's going to be wild on the street. People are going to be in their feelings. People are probably going to be petty. There's probably going to be some stuff going on. If you want to know more about what I expect to see in the headlines, you can find that at the patreon.com. It starts at $5 a month, guys. I'm not charging a lot. If you see the $7.50, that's the Apple surcharge. You can always purchase it through a browser and not through the iOS. And then you will save the 30% surcharge. Alrighty, let's do some patron shout outs. Speaking of patrons, time to welcome our newest patrons, because without patrons, there is no podcast. And then we're going to talk about alignment and how to work with this energy this week so you can have a better experience. All right, it's time for some patron shout outs. Yay! All right, let's celebrate our newest patrons. Bunch of you found us, so super excited about that. If you want to be a patron and help sponsor this podcast, just like you sponsor PBS, and if you're not sponsoring PBS, why the hell not? That's one of the ways I use contributions to the Awake Space Astrology podcast is I sponsor my local PBS station, just like you sponsor the Awake Space Astrology podcast. All right. We've got Megan, Claudia, Sarah, Amalia, Flo, Letty, Anna, Amelia, TJ, Alyssa, Jackie, Sarah, Mia, Jackie, Chandler, Gemma, Jacqueline, Nova, Fern, Sandy, Maylin, Sean, Misha, Marissa, Amanda, Sarah, Jessica, Ray, Hazel, T, Brandy, Courtney, Becky, Amy, JJ, JC, Uncle Kate, SCM, Luna Blue, Judy, Renee, Robin, Sam, Haley, Camilo, Stephanie, Jillian, Denise, James, Billy, Paige, Spiritual Enlightening, Candace, Teresa, Maz, Jess, Denise, Megan, Gabriella, Ashley, Stephanie, Giovanna, Bree, Colleen, Andrea, Jeanette, chimes in, Micah, Molly, Christine, Christy, Lily, Sue, Jenny, Lil, Liz, CD, Karina, Cheryl, Janelle, Karen, Teresa, Jacqueline, Robin, Katie, Abril, Katie, Corrine, Bee's Knees, Christine, Anna Marie, Brianna, Jonna, Melissa, Amanda, Carolina, Jamie, M. Ryan, Sarah, Tina, Laura, Debbie, Jen, Maricela, Jessica, Nicole, Macy, Liz, Ariel, Farah, Sheila, Melissa, Katie, Courtney, Atomic Flea, Joanna, Dina, Stephanie, Jordy, Jasmine, Ashley, Caramujo, Erica, Jen, LMAO, Welp, Tamika, Courtney, Diane, Amanda, Karen, Sue W, Marie, Mr. C Nana 5, Tingle Root, Rachel, Tammy, Lisa, Amy, Jeff, Rachel, Marcy, LG, Sherry, Leanie, Veronica, Kay, Jean, Carolyn, Dana, Christy, Jen, Bridget, Shannon, Audrey, Spooky Latte, Elizabeth, Beam, Cameo, Susie, Sarah, Tamika, Witches and Britches, Brandy, Zoe, Brenda, Laura, Mary, Bethany, Christopher, Jessica, Amanda. Man, there's a lot of you. Let's see. Caitlin, Fire Girl, Beth, Sarah, Ann, Lauren, Christy, Leslie, RBF Champion, Gab, Serena, Bryson, Mina, Paloma, not Paloma Diamond though, Alicia, Sarah, Kaylee, Lori, and Lindsay. Welcome, 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 or welcome back. I recognize a few folks. Love that you re-upped with us. Thank you so much. By the way, if you are a patron at the $5 level and up, you save $125 off readings, 1 hour readings with Susie, Damien, and Shelby. They are outstanding readers. I chose them personally. They've all studied with me in some way. Susie took professional development with me. Both Damien and Shelby got beginnings with me all the way up. They are outstanding astrologers. They have a high sense of ethics. They are very accurate, and they will help you understand life and your timing and how to leverage the best parts of yourself into reaching and attaining the goals that you have, whether it's through your relationships or through business or through your career. They have an amazing ability to help you use what is best about you and your strengths, whether you think you got them or not. They'll help you navigate your next steps in life. All right, you can find that in the Patreon as well. Let's get on with the show. Let's talk about how to use this week's energy, because there's some really sweet energy up on deck, and you can really use it to your advantage if you know how to line up into it. All right, let's talk about alignment. A lot of times when people say, yo, you're out of alignment, I will argue you are never out of alignment. You are always aligning to energy. And energy includes thought, because brainwaves are energy, because energy has wavelengths, right? It's not hard. It's not even pseudoscience. And so you can align into negativity. You can align into self-sabotage. You can align with your higher self. It's up to you. Just like your car tires line up. It isn't about good or bad. When people in the spiritual community say you're out of alignment, what they mean is you're out of alignment with your higher self or God or goddess or whatever you believe. I'm never here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to help you navigate so that you are living within your belief, right? Aligning just means to line up. That's it. And we have some really, really precious energy this week. I'll talk about that more in the Patreon-only podcast. But to know how to work with it, it's going to be very strong. Your desire to be secure is going to be very strong. There could be economic news, or there could be just news about food production. I've talked about this for a long time. You don't have to do any kind of divinatory work except read the newspaper. Okay, read the news. There's a lot going on in the world. Everything from climate change to economic policies, corporations, which
seriously, how they're run by their executives is embarrassing half the time because they're very myopic. You know, I'm myopic. Don't think I'm being ableist because I'm not. I'm blind in one eye. So I can say it. They're blind. And so there's a lot going on. And our sense of security could be up on deck. It really could. And so it's really, really important for us to understand what we want to align to. And I think a lot of people get off on aligning into panic and aligning into misery and aligning into negative thinking. And we talked a little bit at the top of the podcast about emotional contagion. Now, I'm not a high five person. You know, toxic positivity is dangerous. It's dangerous because it ignores what is around us. And it's fake. And it's usually not authentic to the point where it works. It'll backfire because you're actually resisting the present moment instead of accepting it. Accept does not mean condone. Accept means accept. I see it for what it is. That exists. That's an acceptance. It's not, oh, great, I love this horrible situation. It's not what it is. It's not what it means. I can look at it. I can see it exists. I can look at my sense of powerlessness and not like it and be like, you know what? I don't like feeling powerless. I can accept that about myself. You know? But if you get into it and you're like, I can't do anything. I'm so helpless. I'm so hopeless. I'm never going to make it through it. 90% of the people who leave comments like that on my TikTok, if I go look at their account, it's usually a suburban white chick. It's almost never someone from a disenfranchised community. Almost never. Consider why that might be. That, I got the vapors. Oh, I can't take it anymore. Bring me some smelling salts. Oh, Jeeves, I need a gin and tonic. There you go. That's what it reminds me of. Come on. Stop infantilizing yourselves, ladies. We're all tired. We are living in a time of massive systemic change. This roller coaster isn't going to slow down. We get a couple of days in September that give us a little bit of a break. It's time to take a deep breath, take the shower, get up, get back out there. Okay, we are in a time of massive systemic change. I don't know when you thought that was just going to be, there was a little button that'd be like, stop. No. And if you followed me for any time at all, I've said, get ready. It's going to take a long time. And yeah, on TikTok, I said 2028, but I lied. I lied because in 2020, I had a bunch of high schoolers following me, and I didn't want them to be freaked out. I didn't want them to give up hope. Because 6 months is a long time when you're 15, let alone 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And I am absolutely, and I'm going to chide you. And I love it when people don't like it. They're like, they're not my mother. No, I'm not, but you're choosing to listen to my podcast, and this is how I feel about it. When I put out that in 15, 20 years, we'll have very different systems in the world, that we're probably moving more towards councils, because we're going to have to. Climate change is a real thing. And this was the year we would really see it. You don't have to be intuitive for that. The scientists were talking about it in the 80s, okay? Some of this is common fucking sense. And we are not too fragile to make it through. We get to make it through. You'd be amazed at what you can survive and then thrive through, if you are willing to do so. If you can understand that the payoff is greater than luxuriating in your misery. Just saying. But when I put a post up about the duration, and people are like, I'll be 40. I'm like, really? I'll be 65. Or, oh no, I'll be dead. I am planting seeds of the fruit I will never get to taste. I am planting trees whose shade I will never sit in. That's it. In fact, I'm amazed I get to be here now, because I've been doing this for a very long time. I didn't think people would listen. When I started this podcast, I was just mouthing off on my phone because I didn't expect a damn person to listen. I was not used to people wanting to hear what I had to say. But let me tell you, after 2020, they were like, holy crap, you were right. Yeah, I know. I knew I was right before, too.
Get no great pleasure out of it. And it is kind of, the pleasure I get is that people actually want to hear what I have to say. I'm like, oh, cool, because this stuff can actually help you and make your life easier as you navigate and adapt through the energy. If you resist it, oh me, oh my, oh no, what is going to happen? Oh no, another disaster. Oh no. Anytime the what's in the headlines goes up on social media and people are like, it's horrible this week. I'm like, it's like that every week. It was like that every week before 2020. You just didn't pay attention because it wasn't impacting you, or so you thought. It's always impacted you. You just weren't aware of it. You may not be old enough to remember how we discussed these things back in a certain time period. You might be older and you just weren't paying attention. And that's okay. You are now. Life has never been easy on planet Earth, but we are in a new epoch. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's up to us to create it. And this week, the energy is spicy. Spicy meatballs. And you can fight against it, and you can fight with other people, and you're going to be all justified. I'm sure we're going to see either in comment sections or venting chamber, well, that dirty no good so-and-so tried to tell me I was this X and Y and Z. Who gives a shit what they say about you? Who cares? Why does their opinion matter about you? Why? You know, they said I have no integrity. Well, do you? Do you have integrity? Why, yes, I do. Cool. So their opinion matters. Why? They're an expert on integrity. How? A lot of stuff is going to be up on deck because we are in a time of massive systemic change. We're in a time of massive systemic change, and that is forcing us to have a new kind of awareness. Okay? A new kind of awareness. Why would you blow your energy worried about somebody else unless your physical life is in danger? There's a big difference. Okay? I'm not talking about, like, if somebody's slandering you, if somebody's saying bad things about you, if they're not an expert opinion, I wouldn't worry about it. Okay? But if they're making a problem that puts your safety at risk, that's a problem. Or if they're threatening your safety, and I don't mean your ego, and I don't mean your feelings. When people are like, I don't feel emotionally safe. The only one who can make you emotionally safe is you. Seriously. Not everywhere is going to be safe emotionally. You would hope in a therapist's office it is, right? You would hope when you're working with a coach or a consultant that it's depending on the subject. I don't think I'd tell my builder if I was renovating my house, my trauma story. Wouldn't be a safe environment because that person isn't trained for that. I will talk about how I want my bathroom remodeled. Okay? Time and place. Appropriateness is not masking. It's how life works. Why do I go on about masking? Because I had to mask too. I'm neurospicy as F. But I know for a fact that human beings have social systems. Now, those are changing. How the world works today will be very, very different in 20 years. But you can't just run around hitting people. I remember the first science fiction convention I went to, and I was 30. Okay. I wish I would have found it as a teenager because I was like, I am an avid sci-fi and fantasy book reader. I love science fiction and fantasy. I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be around other smart people who really love alternative worlds and different realities and the possibilities of the future. And I got there, and some of the rudest, most ill-behaved people I've ever seen in my life, because they were never made to mask, because they were men. And I was like, you can have a high IQ and not be an asshole. My IQ is off the charts high.
I was tested when I was 12 because they didn't test people like me for being on the spectrum because they didn't believe a spectrum existed. Okay. And like many girls, I present differently, right? But my IQ was way high, way high. Highest they'd ever seen in the history of the district. Ever. My mom made me have social skills so that I ended up having things like friends. Because you still have to say hi to people. I learned that when I was 18 and I was away from home because I grew up in a small town. So once I made friends, I didn't have to make new ones. It wasn't something I had to do. And so when I went away to college and I was in England, at 18, mind you, after I won the fight with the poltergeist, if you know, you know, if you listen to Tracy St. Croix's podcast that I was guest on, then you know. If you haven't, I'll put it in the show notes because it was super fun to be a guest. And I tell a really funny story. Anywho, I was walking down the stairs and there was this Japanese lady who would walk up the stairs and we had different schedules, right? And she would glare at me. And I didn't know why. And she never said anything. So I never said anything. This went on for like 2 months. And then one day, walking down the stairs, I had an epiphany, and you're going to laugh. Here it is. Here's the wisdom that popped in to my 18-year-old head. Maybe if you say hi, she'll say hi back. For real. That was the epiphany. So I did. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I swear my guides must be like, oh, isn't she special? She's so smart and yet so dumb, all at the same time. So I walked down the steps and I went, hi. And she went, hi. And we were like, oh. And she goes, I thought you didn't like me. And I was like, well, I thought you didn't like me. And she goes, no, you're always looking at me like this. And I was like, oh, you're always looking at me like this. Neither one of us could see. We were squinting. Even though we had contact lenses in, we were both like, Mr. Magoo. Thank God it popped into my head. Thank God it popped into my head because I'm still friends with her. It wasn't about masking. It's a thrill to get the diagnosis, whatever it is, whether it's anxiety, depression, ADHD, being on the spectrum, being neurodivergent, having the diagnosis officially that you've got a reason, a trauma-based disorder. Like there's a reason I am the way. That feels good. You're not just making it up. It's good to have the validation. I get it. I've been there. But in the energy we have this week, if that's your whole personality, it is going to suck. We can still, even with a diagnosis, it does not say we cannot grow and heal. Neuroscience would be counter. And I do not understand for the freaking life of me why psychology and neuroscience are not cooperating, other than it's financial. Because if you help someone work on their brain and use neuroplasticity to heal, then, they may not need you so much. Which I know so many therapists who are not like that. Don't think I think every therapist is like it. But why? Why aren't we? It has been common knowledge. It has been something not just in a specialized field of study, but it has been in the common arena for a long time now. Why are we not acknowledging this? Why do we think we have to be damaged forever? Is it because it gets you a drink at the bar? Is it getting you a brownie button? What are you getting out of your pain story? Because if you're running your pain story this week, life is going to hit you upside the head. It is going to be really uncomfortable. And that is a Libra moon statement. So you got to know it's going to be more than uncomfortable. That's like when a doctor says it's going to pinch a little. You feel a little pressure. It might be a little discomfort. It's going to hurt like hell.
If you do not grab hold of your own ability to align into how you want to feel, if you're going to make it everybody else's fucking fault, how they behave, what they're doing, you are screwed because you are putting your power in other people's hands. I'm not saying that conditions don't suck. I'm not saying that there isn't a reason. But honestly, there's very few people on this planet who get to say that their life sucks. And look out at the world. Do you have food? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have people you can connect to? I'm not saying not all your family, not everybody gets along with their family, but do you have any form of community? If not, why? Because nobody likes you? Do you wash your butt? Wash your butt. If you have reasonable comfort, I'm not saying you don't have other problems, but if you have reasonable comfort, you should count your goddamn blessings this week, because other people aren't going to have it so easy. There are people who are struggling, but if you can't fix their problems, why the hell are you letting it disempower you? You are not helping them that way. You can't own their pain. That's rude. There are ways you can be supportive, but if you're not growing and stabilizing yourself, you become a risk to the rest of those around you. You become the weakest link. And I hate to talk like that, but we're about to find out about some real evolutionary stuff, and people aren't going to like it. But you've got to take care of you. We have some sweet, sweet, sweet energy this week, but if all you're doing is bitching and whining and moaning and complaining, you will not be able to take advantage of it. And you'll be like, God, Laurie, you're yelling at me. Yes, I am. Because some of this has been knowledge for 20 years. This isn't arcane in a grimoire somewhere. This is science. And before science, it was the philosophers and the theologians in every major faith. I love comparative religion. It's a wild week. If you can't count your blessings, because you have them. You have them, even if you're uncomfortable. Even if life isn't going your way, there's still a blessing. And the more you can lean in and align to the blessing, the more show up. The more show up. The more you align into complaint, the more you're going to have to complain about. It's that simple. Because you're training your brain. Your brain does what you tell it to. It will notice what you tell it to. Again, go watch Jill Bolte Taylor's The Neuroanatomy of the Teenage Brain. I've linked the YouTube into the show notes. Don't worry about it just being, like, even if you're not a parent, I want you to watch this because it'll make sense. It came out a long time ago. My son was a teenager and we watched it together. This week is gnarly. Do your deep breathing. Redirect your consciousness. Don't let yourself get into that obsessive loop, where you feel compelled and you're like, that dirty, rotten so-and-so. Don't do that. It hurts you. Choose where you put your energy deliberately. Use the agency. Use your free will. You were given this as a birthright. Use it. And if you've got questions about that, bring them into the Awake Space. I'll be glad to answer those. And I think that's why we're going to call this, because I got to make the patron only stuff, and it's not going to stay light very long, and I don't want to spend the night, because sometimes I spend the night in the studio, but I got stuff to do tomorrow. So I'll see you next week when we talk about that new moon in Virgo and why it's a twofer.